Talos of Tech podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I'm joined again with Nick and Randy, and we have some exciting developments in Apple this week. Oh my god.
So exciting.
The turntables. Have we all ordered a keyboard case?
How the turntable. Beautiful.
Very good.
I love it.
Very good. Very good.
Thank you.
Randy, have you ordered a keyboard case? And if so, when is the ship date?
This just in.
Just in, live from Aunt Sweeney HQ.
Ahead of schedule. Oh my god. I'm so glad.
Yes! If he's going to be the guy who's at the desk, I'll be the guy outside. That's right, Nick. I'm out here looking at the Apple Store, and I can tell you, I did in fact buy an iPad keyboard case.
And Randy, please tell me, how many people have lined up for this keyboard case? I've heard it's quite a shock.
Right now, it looks like it's just me at the house because of the quarantine.
I see. So
you.
Back to you.
All right, next we go up to our correspondent, Drew, who lives in somewhere, and he is also ordering a keyboard case, but he chose a different strategy. He decided to not go to the store. He decided to wait at home, like a good boy. Drew, when is your ship date?
Tuesday. I'm supposed to get it on Tuesday, which is the day after this podcast goes up, so I am really excited. There's already videos leaked of people using it, and it already looks cool to me. I like how rigid it looks. Like, I was worried the keyboard case was going to be really flimsy, but in the video I watched of it, it looks very rigid. And you know.
Did you see those videos that were leaked? Or not leaked, posted, I don't know, whatever. The people got their cases early.
I watched them. I don't know how they got them, but I watched them because
someone lost their job today. I'm pretty sure.
Probably. I don't know who
Some guy shipping the keyboard cases in Taiwan lost his job today. Sorry, he got a phone call from Tim Apple.
He didn't even have the latest iPad though.
So we have a little bit of a internal bet going on right now. Who's going to get it first, Drew or me? Because Drew is slated to receive it a day earlier than me, but I'm saying because Drew lives in the middle of, like, I don't know, Egypt. He's
Texas.
in the middle of nowhere.
I mean, yeah.
So see, so far, and you know, I'm in a very dense populated city that's close to warehouses and delivery and all that. So I believe
that's your downside, though.
Why?
Oh,
delivery trucks have to make more stops. There's more traffic. Whereas I'm probably the only person within 300 miles of here that ordered a Magic Keyboard case.
You know, the fact is that a good thing or a bad thing, Drew? I don't know if that's a compliment.
I think it increases my averages because the Apple Store app is usually generous with the ship times. It's usually overestimating how long it's going to take. So if it's telling me a day earlier than you, I believe it. I think it's right.
I will say that Apple has statistically delivered on the date promised, or I have received it a day early in the past. And the last time I got it early was when I got the very first Apple Watch. And I was on my balcony living in an apartment, and I was just binoculars like this waiting. And every time I saw a like I've tracked the things like FedEx, or UPS. I was like, that's a UPS, that's me, that's for me, that's for me, that's for me. No, that's not for me. That's for me, that's for me, that's for me, that's for me. No, that's not for me. The whole day, I was so excited. The moment I got the watch, this is so sad, but it's so true. I got the watch, I put it on, I lost my mind, and I went straight to my girlfriend at the time. I went to her barbershop, and it's at a mall. And I'm walking around, and I had the sleeves rolled up, and I'm just like trying to show off the fact that I got the first Apple Watch, and not a single person looked nor cared, and I was so offended.
I appreciate the acknowledgement of how sad it was.
It was.
Like
I'm just like,
you accept.
Hey
that
guys, do you take Apple Pay? Boop boop on my watch, and everyone looked at me like, yeah, that's $2.99, sir. Like, they didn't care.
That's interesting. I don't have a similar backstory.
Oh, I do. Let me launch into this one. AirPods. I was the very first person in my city to get AirPods, or at least in the first wave. I got 9 a.m. shipping, and I went in late to work because I was waiting for the FedEx guy to deliver my AirPods. And when I got them,
understandable.
For a solid year, I commuted on public transit, walked around downtown, went to school, went to work. with AirPods in 24/7. No one noticed. You could tell, maybe like
anything.
Twice in the entire year that I had AirPods, of like maybe 2 or 3 people kind of like looked at me like twice, like, hey, well, where's the cable? And I literally saw no other AirPods in that entire time. It was just me. And
maybe
then like
polite.
The meme went around. No, the meme went around, and then everyone had AirPods, and I didn't feel special anymore.
True.
But why would someone ask you if you've got earbuds in? They'd be like, "Oh, he's listening."
Well, maybe they just I'm watching for the looks on the train or the walking around the town. Just like, yeah, you notice the looks. You notice the other Apple sheeps. There's that like little, oh, I noticed your iPad. Oh, I noticed your Apple Watch. Oh, I noticed your AirPods. Just that like little like, hello.
That universal nod.
But unfortunately, I live inside of these 4 walls, and I have not left them in. Well, I went to the grocery store a week ago. That was pretty exciting.
12
but
years?
Before that, yeah, it was about 3 months.
No, when I got my Apple Watch, I was filming a wedding that day, and we were ahead of schedule because they wanted us to film like the setup of everything, of like all the tables and everything. So we were filming, and I was my watch was out for delivery, so I was checking my phone constantly, like, has it delivered yet? Has it delivered yet? And it had delivered, and there were like 2 hours before the wedding actually started, and we already had got a bunch of footage. So I was like, me and my friend Ross, who's in the Air Force now, and I was like, do you think we got time to go home real quick and set it up? And he was like, yeah, I guess we got a bunch of footage already because we showed up pretty early. So we left, got the watch, unboxed it. I wasn't a tech YouTuber at the time, so I just basically like filmed it for myself with
ripped the packaging apart like a monster.
Yeah, there was no commentating or anything. It was just literally me unboxing it on like my friend's bedroom floor, and it's like, here it is, and I put it on, and I go through the whole, the iPhone camera and everything.
That's right.
And then right after, we're all dressed up for the wedding, but we film it, and afterwards there was lots of mingling and socializing. So I just kept bringing it up, and I had a friend, more of an acquaintance, I guess, come up and was like, "Is that the Apple Watch? How does that work?" And I was showing him the draw thing. Remember, where you could draw little pictures and send them to people.
Yeah,
and everyone
or the
was
heartbeat. Like, you put your 2 fingers onto the
digital touch. Yeah, digital touch.
So I had a good time with it that day because I wasn't a watch wearer before the Apple Watch. So like I was at a luxurious event, and I got to flex it on people. And actually, one other guy got his that same day. So we were both, showing it.
Drew swore he was wearing a Rolex that day. Yo, what's up, you plebes? Plebeians?
Little did they know that would become the #1 watch within a few years. Didn't know it at the time.
So, wait, question. Real quick. This is a question for both of you. Were you not watch? So I guess you were never a watch wearer. Did you have any interest before the Apple Watch of wearing a watch, Drew? And for Nick, were you a watch wearer before this?
Who's going first?
I'll go first. Okay. So no, I had no desire to wear a watch. Once the Apple Watch came out, they unveiled it, and I think there was a good 6 to 7 months before it actually started shipping. But we knew it existed. I
remember those 6 or 7 months very vividly.
It was stressful. So because of those months where I was like, oh, I got to wait for this to come out before I can actually get it. In fact, back then, stressful. I didn't even know if I was going to get it because at the time, money was not like, I wasn't working full time.
It didn't grow on trees back then. Now it just grows on trees.
Now I mean, it's work related. You make one video about the Apple Watch, and you basically, you cover
it. Pays for itself.
But back then, it was like, I'm gonna film weddings so that I can pay for the Apple Watch. So I wasn't sure if I was gonna get it, but I decided, just because I've never really worn a watch before, I was gonna try one out. So there was some cheap one we found at my house, and I put it on, and all it did was tell the time. But I immediately was like, I want this thing to read my texts or give me, notifications, or I want to be able to check email on this thing. And I was just reading the time off of it. But actually, to be fair, before that, there was a time in freshman year of high school where I wore the iPod Nano 6th gen as a watch, which was not a great watch, but it did have like a clock app that had watch faces, but it didn't have an accelerometer. So in order to check the time, you had to press the side button every single time. And it had a headphone jack, and it charged via 30 pin, But there was a Amazon accessory I got that let me use it as a watch, and I wore it for
a 30 pin
on that tiny thing. Imagine, because it's about the same size as the Apple Watch. Imagine charging an Apple Watch with a 30-pin connector. It took up the entire side.
This is why they discontinued Nano. We have it right here.
Yeah, we got the Nano. But at some point, I was with a friend. We were shooting a movie out on a hike somewhere, and there was a time where we decided to go swimming, and I forgot to take it off, and that thing was the opposite of waterproof. I think it would die if it was within a foot of water. It didn't even have to touch it. If it just got near any type of liquid, it shut off instantly. So I jumped in a river at one point with it on and went, oh shoot, and then afterwards it did turn on, but the buttons didn't work. So I just stopped using it after that. But
I guess you couldn't tap the display to turn it on back then, huh?
No, you had to press the button each time. But I would listen to music on it because AirPods didn't exist yet, so I would put my wired earpods into the watch and have a wire going from my watch to my ears, and people thought crazy. I was a cyborg.
Well, I mean, we're technically we're just like one step close. We're one step below being a cyborg at this point.
I was really ahead of my time now, if you think think about it. Listening to music 100%. Off the watch.
Facts. Big facts. Joe was using big brain back then.
I knew where tech was going. I was weird at the time, but now that's pretty normal.
for as long as I can remember as an adult, so I guess maybe 18, even before that, actually, I loved watches. I loved wearing watches because it was an accessory, and maybe it's a point in time type of a thing where I didn't have smartphones or anything like that in high school. I didn't get my first phone, which was a flip phone, until I was probably in like 10th or 11th grade, maybe. And
same, but it wasn't
same here.
But it wasn't. But mine was a flip. But even then, it was just like it was a standard, whatever. So I always kept a watch on me, because leading up to that moment, around that time, like that's the only way I could tell time. I was just a watch, and so I had hiking watches and stuff, waterproof thing. So those G-Shocks and stuff like that. I did stuff like that. But then I got into the whole like accessorizing thing as well. I was like, this is nice. So I remember one of my my very first job, I worked at SeaWorld San Diego, and one of my first paychecks I got, it probably wasn't the first one, but one of my first checks, I went to the mall and got me one of the watches that like charged via solar. And I was like, ooh.
Whoa.
We had the same watch, Randy. This is crazy.
Oh, wow.
G-Shock solar watch, that is crazy. I love that little thing.
I love that thing. And so having the watch, I was just like, oh, I felt so, like that was my way of like, as a kid, as a teenager, flexing. Look at me, I got a watch. And then very quickly, shortly after all that, smartphones did start coming out. And then I was like, nope, I want that instead. But then I never really stopped wearing watches because of the Marines. You don't really have technology on you. And so like I just was accustomed to always having a watch on me. And so when I saw Apple Watch come out, like you guys, those 6-7 months, I was pulling out my hair to the point where I gave myself a man-made mohawk of what you see here.
Ooh!
Because I was just pulling it out. I was so ecstatic because like this is the last watch I'll ever buy, and not the version, but like I won't get another watch. I won't get a Rolex or a Citizen or a G-Shock.
It's like a smartphone. Get an Apple Watch. If you get a smartphone, you don't go back to a flip phone regularly.
Exactly.
Some people probably did, but
I can't think of anyone who's ever done that.
Well, so yeah, I love.
My wife is pretty close to doing that, but
at this point, it's just a challenge to her because if I can go back to the iPhone 6, what else can I do?
Yeah.
At that point,
we'll go to
you already jumped in the
phone.
pool. Yeah.
With the big brick. Yeah. We'll see how far back.
Miami Vice.
Yeah.
Put it to your ear and you get cancer.
Yeah. No, you just gave me an interesting idea though, because I know there's been so many years we've asked for like smart connectors on the watch bands, but they've never turned into anything. But if they ever ended up doing that, could you make some type of solar watch band that, because the Apple Watch runs on very little power.
Yeah.
So if you were outside with it, you might be able to sustain a charge / increase it. Depending.
I would love that.
I never
That'd
got
be
outside,
interesting.
so it wouldn't be super useful for me.
Well, you don't have to buy it.
Cool. I know.
Because
I
you
would
live
be
outside. Wait a minute. Wait, Nick. Every time I get a notification on my watch, you completed an outdoor run.
Indoor run. Treadmill.
It says outdoor.
No, it says indoor. Indoor run.
I'll do the checking.
Always indoor run.
Let me download the activity app real quick.
Wow.
Wow, Drew. Wow. Way to be healthy.
I think I like that idea. If we can have solar charging added to it, all things solar. Teslas, iPhones.
Nick was correct. It says indoor run.
Wow.
Thank you. It's almost like I know what kind of runs I do.
Now I'm going to delete the activity app.
Okay. Thank you for proving my correctness, Drew. I appreciate it. I'll give you your $20 later.
Thank you.
I'll use Apple Pay Cash.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, can we talk about the keyboard case now?
Yes.
Please.
Oh my gosh, there's so many thoughts on that. Oh my gosh.
It's easy to get into the watch thing, but so for the record, someone plugged into the. We did some tests, Nick, because I know in the previous podcast we talked about how the smart connector will not charge the iPad. It can, and it will sustain the battery life dependent on your usage, like I promised previously.
If you're watching Netflix off of a local backup with the screen at 2%.
No, if you're using Twitter, Discord, email, basic stuff. The only time he was able to find a percentage go down, Mike from the Discord, was charging his iPad via 5-watt charge brick, which is the same speed the smart connector can do. And his percentage did not change for over 4 hours when doing basic things like social media, email, Discord, just normal online management. The only time it went down was when he played Minecraft at heavy chunk renders.
Okay.
So for gaming stuff, yeah, it'll still go down a little bit. But for everything else, it will stay the same. If the display's off, it will go off.
Would also take
probably
a hit, right? Like,
I would think maybe group FaceTime calls like this or YouTube.
We'll find out.
Well, I can't wait.
We'll find out.
Yeah. I can't wait.
I'm not saying it's not charging. I'm just saying it's charging at 5 watts, which for the iPad is not.
You said it would go down for the record.
For the record, when I'm doing LumaFusion or things
I got to download the activity
app. But not everything.
Not everything. Well, I didn't mean everything. I meant when you're having the brightness at medium to high settings, working in LumaFusion, maybe FaceTiming people.
Do that, though?
Or what? Randy. Oh my gosh, Randy!
It's better. It's better than nothing. Is my point.
It is better than nothing. I will give it to that, and I do appreciate having it on the other side of the iPad. I think that'll balance things out a little bit. But still,
if you want to charge slowly, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, that is true. And I'm kind of looking at this now that I've seen the videos and kind of a little bit more detail on this case. I'm kind of thinking it's just going to be like on my desk, like always. Mm-hmm. And if I want to move the iPad, I'll take it out of the case, because right now my current iPad, it's very portable. And I take it out. The case is real light, even though it has a keyboard on it. I can take this anywhere and not feel like it's too cumbersome. But it looks like the new Magic keyboards are like quite heavy, like as heavy as the iPad, or possibly a little bit more. And like the iPad,
which is why you can slap it on, slap it off, and keep the keyboard.
Exactly. So I'm like, I don't think I want to carry around all that like extra keyboard stuff. So I'm thinking whenever I leave or move around, I'll just be taking the iPad all by itself. And then because of that, I've been experimenting with this a little bit, and I've been using this iPad as a just tablet without the keyboard case, and it feels weird. I see why people like the 11-inch, because this.
Thank you.
This is a little big to be using in portrait mode here.
It looks normal size to Nick.
It does. This way it looks completely normal, but this way it's like.
Having used the 11-inch now, like if I wanted to use my iPad Pro more just in my hands and not on my desk, I would probably stick with an 11-inch, because I went back to using. Returned the 2020 iPad Pro, went back to the 12.9 inch, and I started using it like in portrait mode in my hands and everything. And I was like, this is a lot. This is a bit much. That's why I did that Pro Max concept, because I wanted the iPad of an idea of it
I would love that.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
You would get that?
First of all, shout out to the guy who helped you out that you collabed with and doing all that.
Totally.
That was really cool. I like that. I like the concept designs.
We haven't talked about it since that video went up.
No, we
I don't know how you guys feel about it.
I really do like, one, I like the concept. 2, I like the rendering that I saw and the visualization. 3, I like the hypothesis, like what if, and this whole thing. I'll tell you right now, I wasn't sure I was really convinced beforehand, but then after watching the video, I was like, you know what? Yeah, I think I could see myself genuinely utilizing that. And going off of the specs, I'm just going to assume that our listeners already watched the video. So going off of what Drew said, where it's like, pretend that, we could just spec it out to the max and stuff like that. Let's just assume that it will take the pro applications and it will have higher RAM and et cetera.
A lot of people missed that. I was frustrated because I kept seeing a lot of comments. They were like, we wouldn't need this unless it gets some type of pro apps. I'm like, that's what I said at the beginning. I was like, this iPad wouldn't exist. I'm pitching the idea of this hardware existing if at Dub we get Final Cut, Logic, and once we get all the pro apps.
Software, once all the software catches up to it, and we have stuff that to go with it, then we can put hardware to accommodate the software for it, and so just assuming all that comes to light and we have that, I can definitely see myself utilizing an iPad Pro Max, everything. And like you said too, I don't care if let's make the front facing camera the high pixels,
like the iPhone 11,
give it everything. I would so after watching the video I was like, yep, I would buy into that. And even like you said, you start moving towards MacBook territory, completely worth it once you get the software that accommodates and stuff like that. Because one thing that I do, I know I'm constantly trying to push you can do so much on iOS or iPadOS and stuff like that. There are very vital things that we cannot do on iPad that we do need macOS for, whether it's performing streaming, when it's performing doing multiple functions simultaneously. There's a lot we rely heavily on, including pro applications to let us do pro things besides click cut when editing or anything like that. There's a lot that we do depend on, and it's true. That's the last pillar iPad needs to break through, and once it can, you blur the lines in a way that I think is a good way. It's compelling for you to be like, oh, I guess it doesn't matter. So then it comes like, well, do you need to use more visualizations on cameras and stuff like that? No, if you're just coding, making apps and stuff like that, or you need a powerhouse to render and make concepts and stuff, maybe MacBook might be your thing. But if you're doing more creative type of pro applications, you can make a very compelling argument for iPad. Really quickly, I just got a quick question, then we can keep bouncing off that idea. What do you guys think, both of you, with the new USB port that's only 5 watt? What can it be? What's it used for then? If it's not to charge the iPad, maybe sustain it, what do you see a practical use of utilizing that other USB-C port?
Go ahead, Nick.
In the future, or its current? On the
current, sure. Either or.
Current,
like right now. I'd say right now, and then you can, speculate future.
The only thing, this whole studio for the people watching on YouTube, which you totally should. Now it's a video podcast. I have been working on my
subscribe. Sorry,
cheap plug. I know. I've been working on this whole setup and trying to balance it all out. So I got my MacBook Pro on this side, and I want my iPad Pro on this side. And it's going to be really great because the 5-watt charger will be on this side, which means I can tuck it right on the corner of my desk, have the cable go underneath my desk, and my desk will be clear of cables because MacBook Pro obviously has the Thunderbolt cables on the opposite side as well. So I'm excited to have the smart keyboard just sustaining the iPad, I guess. But anytime that I'm going to be using it, besides just having it there while I'm working, with Twitter or... probably shouldn't be admitting to that. But, just, iMessage or whatever on the iPad. Aside it from being sustaining, anytime I'm actually using my iPad, I'm probably going to have to plug it in, on the other side with an actual 18 or 30 watt
So what will
charger.
you use the other one for then?
What other one?
the one for the keyboard. I guess my question is simultaneously utilizing both USB-C ports, the one for the iPad and one for the keyboard.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I don't think I'll ever be simultaneously. I've only ever needed one USB port. In 2016, I switched to the 12-inch MacBook, which only had one USB-C port, not even a Thunderbolt 3 port, and I was just fine on that one port. And I'm using one port on the MacBook Pro, so. Because I got docks and stuff, and I don't need a bunch of I/O out of the. I like one single cable going out to an I/O that's off camera.
Because that's the closest you get to inductive charging. Basically, it means
true.
You use your iPad, and then when you're done with it, you drop it on the case, and it starts charging. So
that's my thought.
It's not technically Qi, but it's it's close as the iPad's
it's still inductive.
Yeah, you still drop it. You don't have to touch a cable for it to charge anymore, which is
exactly.
Cool.
That's
because
kind of
the
what I'm looking forward to here.
Yeah. What the smart connector isn't good at is data transfer, so we can't really use it for that. But the use case I envisioned was people who do lots of video editing. You can now plug in your cameras. I don't know; it depends on the camera you have. But a lot of more recent cameras, like my Pocket Cinema, have USB-C on them. And now you'll be able to sustain the iPad's charge by plugging in through the keyboard case. Even if it loses a charge, it's still like 3 times longer than just working off of battery power. And that means the full-size USB-C port on the iPad itself, you can plug directly into your camera, import the footage, and just that flexibility of being able to have, okay, I don't have to worry about my battery life, and I can still charge the iPad and import things, or plug in a microphone to the iPad, or plug in. I'm hoping personally in June they kind of revamp the external monitor support. That needs a real big reworking to the iPad. And now that there's additional I/O, that could be way more practical, because if someone just wants to kind of Samsung Dexit style, like drop their iPad at their big monitor and then work on this, because you can't have keyboard and mouse support now. Then you can sustain the iPad's charge via the keyboard case, or maybe even like a MacBook, let it output to a monitor, but then keep the iPad display off. So it's just kind of the internals working as it's outputting to a bigger screen if you want to use LumaFusion on a bigger screen, and then take it on the go when you need to. So there's plenty of practicality I can see adding to that. That's why in my concept, I really like the idea of adding a second smart connector, because then you could go to 10 watts, which I think would have a much better chance of charging the iPad.
Oh, yeah.
And I also just like the symmetricality of it, the look of the logo being lined up and everything like that. Yeah. I don't know if Nick got a chance, but
6-syllable word. My goodness.
Yeah.
That was sexy.
I didn't hear Nick's response. Would you buy an iPad like that, Nick?
Since I'm literally spending way too much money on the current one, I might not. But I'm all in favor of it being an option, and probably at some point in the future I would end up upgrading to
the price you're paying is pretty close to what I would start.
Exactly. So there's no way I'm buying that in 2 or maybe even 3 years. But maybe after that, once the current one has lived its life, and if it ever gets here, Apple.
Well, it'll never come out, so we don't have to worry about that.
That's true, but I think that's the direction.
Never say never.
Remember back, like, I don't know, 2018 or something. We did a show, Drew, and I pitched the idea of a 16-inch MacBook or MacBook Air, big display, good battery, and maybe a GPU, but other than that, just like the traditional MacBook specs, or even and I think that extends to the iPad. And I think that vision of a 16-inch MacBook is a lot more dated now than it used to be, because of the iPad. So I would say a 16-inch iPad would fill that role of a 16-inch MacBook very well. As far
my goal
as,
was
the consumer who wants a large display that's portable.
Yeah. My goal is, like, if the iPad is meant to start, like, okay, Apple's comfortable with it having a keyboard and mouse now. We've gotten past that. I was against it at first because I was worried they would just port over the Mac OS mouse and just hand it to the iPad. But that's not what they did. They found a way to make they found a way to make the cursor an option, but not the dominant interface, so it can still be touch friendly and have a cursor, which I like. So it's like, all right, now if you're okay with it becoming a laptop, why don't we make an iPad that's targeted at being a laptop, but not compromising on anything you get from a 16-inch MacBook Pro? Because right now, if you wanted to pitch the iPad, hey, why don't you start using this instead of your MacBook? Someone with a 16-inch Pro would be like, well, it's smaller. There's only one port, and I have 4 on this one. And I don't want to deal with all those compromises. Also, the trackpad on the keyboard case is a lot smaller. So I was like, okay, let's get rid of all those barriers and compromises. Which that's why I thought it would make sense to actually include the keyboard case with this iPad. It's not going to be a separate accessory because they know that the majority of people ordering this iPad are not going to use it as an iPad. That would be crazy. It's like the pear pads from, Victorious, where they had those giant tablets they would walk around with. So no, they know it won't be used for that regularly. So it's more laptop heavy instead of tablet heavy, which we're in right now. But
yeah,
that's why I wanted it to have like a higher storage configuration, keyboard included. But it's cheaper than a 16-inch MacBook Pro. But no, it's not cheaper than the tiny MacBook.
So, Drew, you've used both the 11-inch and 13-inch iPads.
Yes.
What are your thoughts? I know you've stuck with the 12-inch iPads mostly because there was, or 13-inch iPads.
Because Randy called it. You're just calling it.
Because Randy called it, and there wasn't really a good reason to use the 11-inch. But
yeah,
given a choice between the two, you don't have a current iPad, whatever, price aside, all that. Do you like the 11-inch a little bit better because you use a Mac and iMac, and you're very desktop centric for your work?
Yes.
Do you see yourself wanting a smaller, more compact, just for tablet holding? Like, I tried the tablet guy out with that, and the 12-inch, 13-inch is just a little bit too big to be a good tablet. I don't know.
I think because the keyboard case was coming, that's why I wanted to stick with the 13-inch, because I was like, all right, once we get that keyboard case, it becomes basically laptop. It's been a tablet all this time. Now finally it's becoming a 2-in-1. And if I want a 2-in-1, I want it to be a full size. Like, I do not like the idea of an 11-inch laptop. That sounds too tiny, too compact. Yeah. But as a tablet, like, I think my next iPad, whenever that will be, I don't think I'm going to go back to the 2020 iPad Pro. I think I tested it, found its advantages, and I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool, but it's not, we all agree it's not a big enough upgrade over the 2018 to be worth it for everybody. But whenever the next iPad Pro comes out, whether it's next year or end of this year, I don't know, but I might go back to the 11-inch because I'll probably have a MacBook Pro at that point. So it's like I'll have my big mobile screen. I don't need a second laptop / second 2-in-1. So I might just get another iPad in the future just to use as a tablet and not so much as a 2-in-1. Whereas this iPad is going to be kind of my 2-in-1 until the MacBook Pro comes out, in which case then it'll just be my other laptop. I don't want to have that many laptops. So either way, though, I'm kind of betting and hoping that there's going to be some type of Pro apps launch at DubDub, and if that's the case, then I want to make sure I have a bigger screen to work with. But yeah, when it comes to like, if I wanted an iPad as a 2-in-1, yeah, I would choose the bigger size. But if I was buying a tablet and I was just going to use it as a tablet, not going to use it as a 2-in-1, I would recommend the smaller 11-inch because that's so comfy and light and handy to use if you're just going to be holding it. Like, it's not so much of a burden. Whereas the iPad Pro, you feel crazy using that thing in portrait mode and on your lap. You're just like, okay. But on your desk, it makes a whole lot of sense when it's stood up and everything. And you're just reaching around on it when I'm doing my video thumbnails.
It feels a little small on my desk. Like, the 12, the 13-inch is like, I'd totally be down with a 16-inch like iPad for my desk. Bigger. But there's no way that thing would ever leave my desk.
Yeah. No, that would be, laptop territory for sure.
So,
and then,
Randy, go ahead.
Occasional tablet use. You can take your Apple Pencil occasionally with it if you want a big canvas to work with. But other than that, what do you think, Randy?
Because Randy's a smart keyboard owner like myself.
Yeah.
Smart keyboard gang. Randy, you and I are just on the same wavelength. Drew, you have no idea what you're talking about. Soft keyboards are not a good replacement. Randy,
well, y'all spent $200 on an accessory that's going to be useless next week.
No! Negative. How dare you? How dare you spit facts?
Whereas I only spent $100.
It's okay.
That's somehow
I will
better.
say, I have to. I I've thought about this before you even asked that question. It's something I've pondered on, but for me to tell you, I have to give you some context on it. In order of what I have now and why I led to the iPad I'm using today. In 2015, I bought the 27-inch iMac, and that was my 2011 MacBook Pro replacement. So I got this really, really huge screen, and I had all the screen real estate to do everything I can with it. Loved it. And
27 inches.
27. Oh, sorry. We're doing ASMR. 27 inches. Whoa, that's
Slow
sorry, guys. So much screen real estate. Okay. And as I've said many times, I am a fan of small form factor iPhones. And at that time, 2015 was 6, or was it 6S? It was 6, iPhone 6.
2015? Yeah. Well, it came out in 2014, but yeah. iPhone 6S came out in 2015.
But at the time of my purchase, I had the iPhone 6. Okay. And 6 and 6S, both of them were the small form factors. So with that, I had the biggest screen I could get for macOS, and I had the smallest screen I could utilize at the time for iOS. And in between all that, I had bought the 9.7-inch iPad Pro, the first 9.7-inch one, the first one that came with True Tone display. And so then I got the small keyboard with it, and I comfortably worked on it, and I got used to it. I will say that going from that one to the iPad Pro I have now that has the full keyboard, it's hard for me to really want to go back to it if I'm going to buy a smart keyboard connector to it. So why I bought the iPad in the first place was I wanted that happy medium in between, and I didn't have a mobile big screen display of any kind anymore, because now my MacBook Pro was out of the picture. I had a stationary iMac, and then I had a small iPhone. So I wanted something in between for my on-the-go, moving around, showcasing things that was to complement the iPhone at that point. Since then, I have depended very heavily on the iPad Pro I have now because it's the bigger screen. I use it as definitely as a 2-in-1 for most cases and stuff like that, where the iMac only became Final Cut and Logic. That's the only thing I really utilized iMac now. And as we've discussed a couple episodes ago, I'm in the process later on this year of getting a MacBook Pro. And that MacBook Pro, hoping that we get a little bit of a redesigned and updated specs with it. If everything goes as we expect it to go, that's going to replace my iMac. When it replaces my iMac, I won't have a need for such a big iPad anymore. For the next iPad. This iPad, I'm going to hold on to it for... I went from the 9.7-inch True Tone. That was 2016. I held on to that one for 2 years then. And then I got this one. Now we're doing 2 years. But this iPad, now that I'm using, has not reached full potential of me pushing it, unlike the 9.7-inch did. That one was starting to get dated. It was showing its age. This one is still brand new to me, and it's kudos to Apple to showcasing what you could do with the processing power, all the technology that's into it. I think I can see myself using this iPad for easily another year to maybe 2 more years. But
you might upgrade for the mini LED whenever that thing comes out.
Maybe. It's not going to be a necessity anymore. My needs have changed to the sense that what I need now is a MacBook Pro that has at least 2 terabytes of SSD. That's a necessity that I need to continue making videos or using Logic and music and stuff like that. It's not a want anymore. It became a need. So when that happens, iPad, it's not that it's going to take a backseat to it. It's just the needs of the iPad's going to change. I will no longer depend on buying an iPad based off of the accessories like the keyboard, because now we got the keyboards coming in. Worst case scenario, I'll stick with that one and use this iPad for that. I will now depend on iPad. Now that it became iPad OS, it's becoming its own thing. The times have changed since 2016. I will use iPad. One, if we get pro applications, as it'd be cool. Yeah. Then that might sway my decision for screen real estate. But as it stands today, what I have it now, this is a perfect consumer media device when I want to take it up and I'll go, oh, I feel like watching YouTube and doing dishes, or I feel like blah, 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 blah. This is fine, but the next iPad I would buy, I could see myself going down to a smaller form factor because when it comes to mobile devices, the smaller, the more compact, the better, without compromising specs. When I get bigger phones and stuff like that, or bigger, it's because it's a spec bump of some capacity. Otherwise, if there's no compromise, I'll always go smaller because I don't need this to be my primary if I get a MacBook Pro. So
what you're saying, Randy, is that you love small things that are distilled into a smaller form factor.
Yes.
Taking the Pro level and distilling it down into something simple and mainstream. So what do you think about the iPhone SE?
I'm in love with it.
Oh. Hey, did any of you order one, or was it just me?
No, just
I think it's just you. It's just you.
Yeah,
just you.
It's the phone for everyone's dad. That's for sure. I mean,
so
it makes sense, right?
Yeah,
like it's everyone can just be like, "Hey, mom, use this."
I might buy my dad that phone.
Yeah. Right. No, like the SE, I was really shocked by the portrait mode on the front. That was a total wild card for me. I was like, so you're saying that the only reason the iPhone 8 couldn't have portrait mode was because the A11 chip couldn't handle it, but the A13 chip can? Like, I mean, there's probably some,
but the
a little bit of marketing.
Can do it. The A12 can do it with the XS, though.
Right, but the A12 wasn't in anything that didn't have true depth camera. So they had to make the argument because they have such a fast CPU now, but in an older design, that like, hey, all of that's actually just possible through computational stuff, and we just couldn't do it with the A11. But I think I wonder how much of that is just Apple saying it's the A13, and how much of it is we didn't feel like adding it to the iPhone 8.
That one.
I think you're close.
It's that one.
I think it's somewhere in the middle. There's probably a little bit of truth to it. My guess is that the A13 allows you to do portrait mode on the front in real time, so you can get the real-time preview, and the A11 couldn't, but if you were willing to do like the pixel style, take the photo, and afterwards it loads and you can do portrait mode. I bet the A11 could do it if they wanted it to, but just not as well, so that's my guess.
Interesting.
What do you think?
But overall, what do you think about the SE, Drew? Like, the camera is one thing. I mean, I think you kind of called it, so, there's that.
I did call. We made a video about it, I think close to a year ago, called "The iPhone SE Nobody Wants But the One Will Get," and I think it was definitely when I was in the last house, so I know it was a long time ago. But I remember reading a report of someone saying that Apple's working on a follow-up to the iPhone 8, and I was like, "What? What do you mean by the 8?" And that's when it started clicking. The SE, we're looking at it all wrong, because back then all of the videos about the SE were envisioning, the iPhone 5S with an OLED display and a notch. And I was like, I think we're looking at it all wrong. What the SE was all about was making an old design with flagship specs, because the majority of the money spent on the A13 chip is not production. Once you're producing the A13 chip, it's pretty routine. It's just an assembly line. All of the money spent on the A13 chip is in research and development. When they're designing the chip and working on the architecture, that's where they blow all their money. So now that the iPhone 11 and 11 Pro have been out for a while, the bulk of the money spent on the A13 is already done. So now it's Apple's advantage that they can use those chips on anything now, because they've already paid for the R&D for them. And that means that they can put them in a $400 phone. I feel like people didn't grasp that. Like,
I know.
A lot of people didn't understand. The iPhone 8 was $450 a week ago. It was $50 more, and $50 goes is a lot bigger deal when it's $400. That's a significant portion of the cost. And all they did was remove 3D Touch, but then improved everything else and charge less money for it. Which I think, it's going to be a long-term home run. Like, I don't think the SE. People were saying ship dates for it are already slipping into May, and I'm like, well, it gets here on the 24th, so slipping into May means it's like a week. It's not that crazy. Like, it's not like delivery dates have been pushed back 2 months. It's been pushed back like a couple weeks. I don't know what it is at the time of recording this, but like I don't think it's going to be a launch day success where everyone buys it on day one. But I don't think they're going to do an SE next year or the year after. Like I think this is going to be around for a long, long time.
So if you look back on the history of the SE, the first SE, where obviously we have 2 data points, so take this extrapolation as you will. The original SE was based off of the 5S design, which was kind of the culmination of the entire 4S, 5S design history. So there's like 4 years of design history that went into this. So they had figured everything out about how to make it as cheap as possible, skip the chamfered edges, cut some corners. Yeah. That SE was the cheapest way to make that designed phone. And Apple had been designing that kind of phone for 4 years, so they knew how to make it cheap. The iPhone SE2, or this new one that's not SE2, the 2020 iPhone SE,
the second generation, as it's referred to on the website.
Okay, very sorry. Second generation iPhone SE.
That's okay. I forgive you.
As Phil Schiller would say, the second generation iPhone SE devices are
devices.
So the iPhone 8 design is the culmination of the iPhone 6, 6S, 7, 8 whole design language.
That's a really old design, actually.
It is. And so they have perfected how to make that design solid and cheap and mass produce it. And they probably have a bunch of parts laying around from iPhone 8s and, molds from iPhone 7s or whatever. They can retool some stuff, and it's very cheap. They know how to do it. So with an iPhone SE3, I wouldn't expect that for another 4 years. It's been 4 years since
I think
the last
that's reasonable.
SE. Yeah. It'll probably be like an iPhone 10 type design, or notch with
or maybe even 10R.
10R, with an LCD and that would be the next SE in 4 years, given these 2 data points.
If they continue to the trend, I think what works between the second gen and the first gen of SE was what you said, Nick, about reutilizing those old parts and the perfect form factor and stuff like that. But if everything rumors to stay true, the LCD display ended last year, and we're not getting any more LCD displays. And if we see something 4 years from now, it might not be the 10R 11 design. It might be a hybrid between that, maybe that size. Because I guess, hold on, let me stop myself real quick. Ultimately, what's happening with the SE line is that's them moving inventory on parts that they have. And Tim Cook was always the master of moving inventory. And that's perfect. I don't see that maybe being the case 4 years from now, because they're phasing out the LCD line of it and everything's going to go OLED if that happens. So if we all get LCD, the SE may very well not be around, or not be updated even longer than that. Then if that's the case, if their intent is to move parts and inventory, I would believe seeing the form factor that we have now from 10, 10S, 11 Pro, seeing this form factor being reutilized as the next SE, which is an OLED display and the small form factors. And this one will be the one that they have the most reused parts, because the front of this, I judge it by the front. The front is going to stay pretty much the same as it has been since iPhone 10. And if we get, it's going to be really interesting, because this will be the first year that the iPhone lines, if rumors stay true, that the iPhone lines will be completely different. All of them. That we won't have 2 of the same of what we had last year or the year before. So,
well, ironically, they're ditching that 5.8-inch form factor that we've had for so long this year, and we're not going to have a 5.8-inch iPhone this time around. But keep in mind, like, we haven't had a home button iPhone in the flagship lineup since 2017. Yet here we are in 2020, and they're dropping one. So it's like, even if they're ditching LCD in the whole lineup, I still think that means they could bring it back for a 2024 SE or whenever, because like this is an old assembly line, and they're still making the 10R. They still sell that.
Yeah.
Which means that it's been around for a while, and it's probably selling pretty well. I don't know if they'll keep it around this year when the new iPhones come out. They might just move the 11 down, make that $100 cheaper, and then get rid of the 10R. But it's part of the reason why I have doubts that we'll get an SE Plus, like a lot of people were asking about, because it doesn't, like, if they didn't launch it now, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for them to launch it later, because if you're just adding dual camera, bigger battery, bigger display, the 10R is already getting pretty close to that $500 mark. You know, where it's at $600 now. And if you're waiting on the SE Plus to come out next year, a year from now, it'll probably be closer to $500, in which case the 10R, I think Apple would even admit, is better than the 8 Plus design in every way. So the only advantage the SE Plus would have is the CPU. So for that reason, I think that there's a decent chance of many, many years from now, maybe 4 years from now, the 10R it'll be the 10R design with an A17 chip or something, like a A15 or whatever. Just with really fast speed. But if you don't, like, what will you be missing out on by then? If you don't care about OLED or no notches or 4 cameras, you know, you're happy with just one. I don't know what the flagship features are going to be in 4 years. It's hard to imagine, but I don't know. Like, because iPhone upgrades are getting less and less major, they might not do another SE.
So
when do you think? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I was gonna
ask a question. Just when do you guys think that we'll see the last single lens iPhone?
It'll be a while. I think they'll keep around the 10R.
Yeah, the SE, the second gen SE is gonna be around for.
No, but like, last year, actually 2 years ago. My goodness, two Octobers ago, was the last new form factor single lens, and last year we got. Now it's just 2 as the default. Everything was no less than 2. This year I don't count new form factor just because it's refurbished, but you know what I mean. It's an old design. It's new updated internals, but externals is the same. And now I'm thinking when they phase it all out in their lineup and they introduce the next phone and it bumps everything off stage, when will that day be when there's just no more single lens? Because some people like the minimalism of just a single lens. I don't need all that stuff. Let me just take a photo of my dog and call it a day. Yeah. I am guilty of that, you know? And so, like, at what point is it like, you know what? One lens is so 2020 or something. We're done with that. You know?
I would say a couple years from now. I mean, the SE's, like Nick said, the SE's going to be around for a while because they're not going to discontinue anything with an A13 chip in recent history. Like, the first SE is still getting software updates. And it's rumored to get iOS 14 even. So that means they're still bringing software updates to the 4-inch iPhone design, which has been gone for so long.
Don't flirt with me. Don't tease me.
But iOS 14 more than likely will be the last update it gets. If it does get it, that'll be great, but it's absolutely the last one. But when it comes to the single cam, like, I could see that still being sold like 2 years from now, and then maybe on the 3rd year, that's when they stop selling it, and maybe you can find it in the clearance section and that kind of thing, or find it on Amazon for $200 or less. But yeah, I think the lineup in 2 years will be no single cams anymore. That's my guess.
Okay.
I think it'll be a little bit sooner than that. Excluding the SE, I think possibly even October. Or whenever the new iPhones come out this year, because what are the
they'll
phones
still sell the SE though, right? Oh, you're
excluding the SE. If we're talking about the SE, I mean the SE is going to be around for at least 3 years.
Well, I phrased the question as a new lineup because 10 right now as it stands, 10R is the last phone to get a single lens. I don't count the SE because it is iPhone 8 body.
Then yeah, so that could be this year.
Yeah, I think this year easily. The 10R is getting discontinued in the fall. Like,
oh, you think so?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I would. I wouldn't put money on it, but yeah, it feels very ready for.
It depends on how they handle it, you know. Like I could easily see it going either way. I don't think one option is more obvious than the other. I could either see them getting rid of the 10R and discounting the 11 by $100, or ditching Well, it kind of depends on the new lineup. Or discontinuing the 11 and keeping the 10R because maybe it's cheaper to manufacture and it has older hardware in it, so it can differentiate itself from the new hardware a lot easier. But
the
like
price
a lot of it
decrease though would have to be substantial to sell people on a 10R, a new 10R in 2021.
But $500, that's mid-range.
It would have to be less
than
$500. It would have to be a little bit higher than the SE.
It wouldn't make sense to drop it below 500 and make the SE that competitive
400
at that point.
Yeah. So having $100 between the two, that's why it makes sense to me, because the SE will have been out for 6 months by that point. So kind of the bulk of the SE's life has been around. Not the bulk, but I mean like the front runners, like the people who are buying it now who are interested in it. They're like, okay, cool, I bought the SE. All right, here's the new lineup. Now the 10R is $100 cheaper at $499. Now people are gonna feel inclined to be like, well, maybe it's only $100 more. I can get the 10R. Whereas if they discount the 11, there's still gonna be a $200 gap between the SE and the 11, and there's a lot of changes in between those gaps. But
I think they want that $200 gap. There's
maybe.
still Apple's still a premium brand at the end of the day. They're not Huawei. They're whatever
Samsung.
Android. Yeah. Well, Samsung is their flagships are premium, and they're known for premium hardware.
Their money makers are budget though. No one buys the premium ones.
That A series thing or J or A.
Yeah. That's their bread and butter.
That's their bread and butter for sure. Everything else is just here give the, because people like that's. I did not know how popular that brand of the Samsung line was until my sister-in-law has that series and always did, and I didn't know what that was. I was like, what Samsung's that? I was like, is that the S7? She go, no, I don't have that type of money. And then I'm like, what? And then I look at it and I'm like, what is this? And she was telling me like, I didn't know this was a thing. But then it reminds me that like I'm in a group, I'm in an ecosystem with people who aren't normal like that, where we just like, And
well, in the U.S. especially, the mid-ranges are not as popular here in the United States. They're very popular in other countries. Like when I went to the Philippines,
Mexico,
in the Philippines, those low-end Samsung and Oppo phones were everywhere. I didn't see a single iPhone there. I was the only person with one.
I judged them judging an iPhone.
Yeah. I had a big, giant, bulky battery case on mine just because I didn't want to stand out too much.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. I think my only thing about the premium brand, Nick, is I agree with you. Apple is known for premium brand and quality and stuff like that. I see them trying to have a phone for every slot of every $100, starting from 400, 500, 6, 7. Like I could see it doing something like that. And then when you go to 800 plus, now you're in flagship. We're trying to put as much as we can and give you the best value for it. I don't think they would. I don't think they have anything to lose by putting the gap of $200, but it would make them more competitive everywhere if they had $100 slots. But with that being said, I talked with some people who are international, and they say that the $399 price tag, that's not the case. Like in Germany, if you adjust the cost, it's $522, and that's their cost for it out the door to get the same $399 price factor. So
right.
I try to put myself in the macro scale, outside the bigger picture. What we see just in the U.S., it doesn't always translate across the board for everybody else as well. And I understand that. So if they can make things cheaper, the cheaper we have it here, the cheaper and more affordable they can make it, even if it's more expensive internationally. And I would rather have cheaper phones to more people in the world than try to get that premium price tag just for the U.S. because we get home field advantage because we're just one part of the whole world.
Exactly.
True.
Huh. So, very good point, Randy. I bought an iPhone 8 2 weeks ago.
Why?
Did you really?
Yeah, I did. Not even joking. It was for my grandma.
Okay. It's not for you. Okay.
But I ordered
time?
it.
Return it. Is there time?
No. I bought it used.
Okay.
So And it's an 8 plus.
Better.
It's an 8 plus. So
it's not
as terrible as that initial statement made it sound. She'd been using a 6 plus, 16 gigabyte 6 plus since 2014 or whenever they came out.
I know what that's like.
Yeah, she was fine. Like, okay, I can't download email attachments. There's no storage. She's already given up taking pictures with it, like, months ago, and she's just like, I can't even download emails. Like, it's 16 gigabytes. I don't know what to tell you. So
they
she's like,
on
okay,
to 16 way too long.
Exactly. I know. I don't know why 16 should have been gone with like the iPhone 5 or 4S or something. Like,
yeah, they hung on to that way too long.
Anywho, so she was like, I just want a new phone, Nick. Just give me a new phone. And I know her well enough that she does not need to be learning swipes and gestures and Face ID.
Got the 11 Pro Max in gold.
I did not get her the 11 Pro Max. She just needs something that's not going to confuse her too much. As you get older, it's a little more difficult to learn new technology, and I'm learning that with them. Like, tech support is definitely a large contributing factor to the frequency of my phone calls with my grandparents. So not that I don't love talking to them, I just rather be talking to them about something else besides tech support.
I wonder if that's like a today thing. Like, do you think we're going to have that problem when we're their age, or will we be?
I don't know.
I've
been thinking about that a lot. Like, gosh, I better
stay
up to date with technology and like
take me up, man.
If I get to the point where, Nick, can you come help me? Just take me out back and put me down. My time has come.
Okay.
We'll probably be with all those Neuralink implants, and we'll be like, okay, grandson, can you tell me what I have to think to make the fridge open? I'm just can't make the fridge open. Just grandpa, just think fridge open. It's like,
unlock the phone now. We swipe down. No, we don't even use phones anymore. You have to think of your favorite color to unlock your phone in your head. It's like, what? Why? What was wrong with the swipe?
So what if you have dementia and just like, who am I?
Well, there's an app for that. There's an app you can get. It gets rid of dementia.
Oh, there you go. Oh my God.
You just download
Alzheimer's. Somebody better give that to Joe Biden.
Oh,
I'm just poking fun at current news. Don't take it serious, guys. I'm just
come on. He makes fun of both sides.
I do.
So I was.
Why am I here? Excuse me, Sleepy Joe. Excuse me.
We basically have a presidential debate just right here on the podcast. Randy, go.
Let's do it on the podcast. Yeah.
Huh? Well, the fact of the matter is, if you look at the why'd I stop? Why'd you stop? Excuse me, Joe. Excuse me. You need to go lay down. You're done. This is who I got. Okay, yeah, I'm done.
Run for Senate.
Okay.
Somebody asked me, he's like, "Oh, what are your thoughts on politics?" I'm like, there's a time and a place, not here. I'll poke fun at it just for humor, but
this is that time, and this is the place.
This is just humor. I'm just having fun.
It is.
So Trump would like the SE because he wanted the home button back. So I'm surprised he hasn't taken credit for it yet.
Wait, what?
Yeah, Trump did want the home button.
Remember the tweet he made? He was like, the home button was way better than the swipe.
Oh, that's right.
So now he should be like, you're welcome. I brought it back.
That should be part of his campaign.
iPhone. Okay, Nick, excuse me, Nick. iPhone SE was my idea. Tim Apple, thank you. Okay, excuse me. And I will have to tell you that Apple's success is... Hey, real quick, actually, hold on. Economic question. Does this mean...
No.
Yes. No, does this mean with iPhone SE... Hey, oh my God!
You can't tell out of. I don't know what you're asking, but you've started.
Hang on. I got an economic question about iPhone.
You said that. What's the question, Randy?
Nick, you can't see me, so you be quiet.
I can see you. I'm using my brain chip.
Yeah, see this, Nick? I'm just kidding. It's my index finger.
Oh, okay.
So. All right. So I will say that my economic question is that with the iPhone SE still being announced now and shipments being as is, do you think Apple was not affected by the quarantine and all that stuff as much as we thought it was, or do you think that production line has been affected total, and this is going to have a ripple effect later on in the year?
I personally think Foxconn, according to what they're claiming, which again we could could not be correct. But personally, it seems like things are delayed at first, delayed in the short term, but slowly getting ahead of schedule, because I do believe the SE was probably meant for March originally, and that it got pushed back given the current circumstances. But the Magic Keyboard is what makes me think things are getting back ahead of schedule, because when they initially announced the new iPad, it was in March. They said it would come out in May. And now all of a sudden we're getting it next week, and like Amazon was saying end of May is when you're going to get everything. Yeah. But now the fact that they're like, you can order it now and it'll come next week. It's like, okay, how often does that ever happen? How regularly has Apple ever announced something saying like, oh, it's coming in October or it's coming at this month, and then it's like a month ahead of schedule? It's like way, way ahead. I can't think of a single time that's ever happened. Which is why I think that schedule-wise, they're slowly getting things back to normal. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, well, so for all you video listeners who just watched that cool transition, and audio listeners who are completely oblivious to what just happened,
I tried to not bring it up.
I know. He just ruined the beautiful transition.
I didn't. Randy, you're the one who brought it up. I was going to just launch into it. Randy, you cannot blame this one on me. This bad transition is your fault. Switch to backup here. Yeah, so what was the question? Randy, why don't you answer it, and then as you answer the question, I will figure out what the question was.
I'll tell you right now, I'm so upset because when I got ready today and I dressed up, I put cologne on, and not a single person has brought it up.
I totally smelled that, Randy. It was that beautiful scent that came up when...
I hate the fact that I'm wearing cologne and nobody can tell.
Tiger King shouldn't put on cologne. It's dangerous.
I'll tell you right now, Carol Baskin.
But what did you think of my response? Did you agree with me, Randy?
I think you're right. I think that the first thing that it should have came out in March, because normally, normally March is around the time we get a spring release of sorts, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
not an event. I'm not changing my opinion on that. I don't think there would have been an event. I do think it could have come out in March though, but just as a website.
I only agree with you because AirPods Pro. I will now. Mm-hmm. I will yield and say yes. I could see this new Apple doing that, and I 100% agree with you. And I think an event doesn't need to happen for everything. And I believe
SE would have been extremely boring during an event.
It would have been. I'm so tired of watching 2+ hour keynotes, and then we're just watching live bands perform their single for Apple Music, and it's like, honestly, if I wanted that, I'd go to Apple Music or YouTube. What I want is I'm here for the.
But Pokemon. Let's get Pokemon. Let's get an hour and a half long demo before the iPhone 7.
Exactly. More recent Apple has been very much like, we only have events when there's enough stuff, and this, like, they've been doing a lot more site refreshes lately, which is why there could have been one planned, but in my opinion, it's still totally possible that there was never going to be one.
I'm okay with that. Aside. I think the longer I've thought about it, I'm okay with the fact that if we only get the Dub and iPhone, I think I'm cool with that. It just because it's quality over quantity. I care about what the stage presentation has, and it makes you more compelled to want to watch the keynotes then, because there was a time 2016, 17 where I'm just like, I mean, I'll watch it, but I will admit halfway through I'm like, I'm bored. I don't care about the sales of this. I don't care about, hey, here's this new app developer showing us what AR can. I don't quit filling time. Just show me the Mac. Show me the.
In the years when there were 3 or 4 events from Apple, they were always, one of them or 2 of them were really, really stale. There was always like, whenever they did 3, it was always like, that one was like I particularly remember the last March event they live streamed that was about hardware was 2016. The last March event they live streamed was last year, and it was all about services. There was no hardware. And 2018 they didn't live stream. 2017 was a website refresh. So 2016, that event was so dull. It was only 1 hour. Most of it was about their environmental impact, which is great and all, but we don't need a keynote for it. And then it was like, okay, we recycled the 5S, and We made the iPad Pro smaller. Bye, everyone. And that was it. And I
remember I skipped class for that one. That's the only
I
class
did too.
I'd ever skipped in my entire college career.
Me too. I skipped a lot, but
I was just so sad that I wasted my skip on that.
I would say it was more
Liam
interesting
was cool.
than a class.
The little robot that takes apart iPhones is pretty cool. But
yeah,
it was just like, okay.
Liam. What does
so
Liam stand for again?
I'm glad they're moving more to site refreshes.
I agree.
These are more they let the YouTubers do the talking for them, and they they let the press run for
Apple's figured out. I'm sorry to bring up Tesla. We'll get to that in a minute. But Tesla doesn't spend any money on marketing, and it's all down to the YouTubers and content creators and on advertising, who make the free content for them. And Apple's kind of figured out a little bit of that. Obviously, Apple's marketing budget's huge because I see them all over Twitter every time I go buy a Twitter ad. It's promoted Apple iPhone SE.
iPhone event. There's enough to talk about.
Exactly.
Worldwide Developers Conference, there's plenty to talk about with new software, occasionally new hardware. Like, sure, there's plenty of stuff to go over. But
services, intermediate updates. If it's not brand new software or brand new hardware, I don't think it requires a keynote. Honestly,
sure.
If you got something brand new, you need to show me. Yeah. Well, but like you said, even outside the pandemic, if I thought about this and more afterwards, like, why didn't they do it? It's like, you don't need a keynote for AirPods Pro. They've never openly talked about AirPods Pro yet, and here we are, like, very much. Where's the coverage of it? They've never talked about it ever.
The last event we had with the last event was the iPhone 11 event. We haven't had like a live streamed public event since then. And the AirPods Pro were just kind of launched, but there would not have been much. It'd been like the new design with the rubber tips that are customizable. They probably explain how they slaved over the re-sculptured look of the AirPods and how much engineering. They film all those real like creepy shots of how the AirPods come out of the water, and like how they manufactured all of this with such precision quality, and they'll be like, yeah, it has ANC, battery life's about the same, the charge case looks a little different, bye everyone. And that was it. I don't need, like, do we need more than that?
Yeah,
probably not. Same with the 16-inch MacBook Pro, so that hasn't been talked about either, but I'm really hoping for our MacBooks as well at the next keynote. So
please. Yeah, if I just need a new MacBook, and I don't want to spend, all this money on a 16-inch.
I personally believe, hold me to this. I wanted to talk about this at least for a second on the keynote. I think there's going to be another site refresh before the keynote, because we got a site refresh mid-March, almost right in the middle with the new iPad Pro and the Magic Keyboard announcement. Okay. And then mid-April we got SE. So, given there's a lot of hardware rumored that hasn't all been announced for, I think mid-May we're going to get the 14-inch MacBook Pro, the 16-inch MacBook Pro treatment on the smaller size, because everything else sounds like something they would want to talk about in an event. AirTags, that's a whole new product category. You'd probably want to talk about it on stage. The over-ears, which are
new product.
Stop. Yeah, exactly. They want the modularity of the headphones and the over ears. They want to talk about, like the HomePod when they unveiled that was at Dub. There might be a HomePod Mini they unveil. Like everything else sounds like something you would want to do at WWDC. Same with the ARM MacBooks. You wouldn't want to do that via site refresh. That's a big deal. You have to kind of explain to people why you're doing it and how you're doing it. But the MacBook Pro 13-inch is in desperate need of a refresh. That thing is like dated compared to the rest of the MacBook Air and 16-inch MacBook Pro. And we know for a fact that they're willing to do MacBook refreshes via software upgrade. But because I think they want to reserve MacBook talk for ARM at the June keynote, why bring up the 14-inch MacBook Pro at the event? Why not just mid-May drop it like, okay, here's the updated CPU. Here's a little bit different tweaked design, thinner bezels. Escape key is back. Magic Keyboard has returned. Obviously, no more butterfly keys. We'll get that next month, and it'll probably be like all the YouTubers go to, like, this is the MacBook Pro everyone should buy because of the decent specs and thermal upgrades and keyboard reliability, and that'll come out because they don't want to talk about it on stage. They've never switched they've never turned off the butterfly keyboard off a MacBook line on stage. They've never done that. So to stay consistent, if they updated the 16-inch MacBook Pro, MacBook Air, and now the 13-inch MacBook Pro, gave them all the Magic Keyboard and ditched Butterfly, then they never have to talk about Butterfly keys on stage again. They can forever extinguish that, because how would they announce that? So with the next MacBook Pro, we realized we screwed up. So we're not going to use the Butterfly keys anymore. Like, they don't want to talk about that. We did a oopsie on that one. So we're not gonna use that anymore. We'll just go back to the
It's a silent death. It's a silent.
Exactly.
We just walk away.
We updated. It's gone. It's gone. And then at the keynote, they can be like, now people love the MacBook Pro lineup between the 16-inch and the 14-inch. So to me, like, there's no concrete leaks suggesting that it's coming out next month, but it makes like a consistency sense that they're launching midway each month right before the keynote, and the MacBook Pro is in desperate need of an update. So that's my guess, mid-May, somewhere in the middle of May.
I like it.
Let's look at the dates.
I'll hold you to it, and I need a I don't know, set a reminder, an alarm. Or
May 13th or May 20th is my guess. One of those.
An alarm. I need a, what is it called? A reminder.
Set a reminder.
Set a reminder on May 13th that Drew is either right or wrong.
There you go. We'll know what that means.
20th
Thank
or
you,
13th. One of those.
For me to help
That'd be really cool. I think
searching in
if
the Apple Watch app
if
on
they
your
actually
iPhone.
updated one, makes me get it quicker, so I'm all for it. Two,
Yep.
you're right. It's a good PR, like silent death. Okay, we're just gonna take this out back. No more lawsuits, please. No more nothing. It's done. Right? It's gone. And then if anything, they could just like, well, we know how much you love these MacBooks, and then they'll talk about how everything is just.
You love these new MacBooks. Yeah.
You love these new MacBooks, and also, if I might add, we don't like to talk about things that we killed. So, on that lovely note, I present to you new AirPower, and then updated one, and then there you go. It's like, hey, we'll never talk about it. Something early again.
Yeah.
We're sorry. This is the biggest we're sorry we can give you. A quiet death of butterfly keyboards and an updated AirPower. There you go. Done. And by the way, you guys like headphones?
Changed my mind.
Yeah.
AirPower
changed
changed
my
my mind. Also,
No,
AirPower is pointless. Changed my mind.
I believe it is externally dead. It could be alive internally, but I don't believe that means it's coming out. And if it does come out, then it's definitely not going to be on stage. That would be the most awkward.
No,
I think they want everyone to forget about it as much as
their
possible.
ego is so bruised from this. No way.
Yeah, does launching it even help that much? Doesn't that make everyone go, well, why did you say you could do it in 2017 if you couldn't do it till now?
Why did you officially say you're not doing it?
Yeah, why'd you cancel it if you did it later? Like, I don't think it would help them even that much.
I think they'll do what they did with
point.
Mac Pro and just like do some type of article thing like, hey, we messed up. We're sorry. We missed the ball. They'll do what they said about
releasing. Yeah, what releasing AirPower in either the end of this year or next year, that would be like someone racing in the Tour de France with the bikes and everything. That'd be like crashing halfway through the race, and like your wheels are busted and they don't work, so you walk across the finish line, and you say, "Well, we finished. Well, we made it. I reached the end," and everyone's like, "Yeah, but you." Not with
We're
the
in the history books, baby. Woo!
Yeah, like how can you even bring that up on stage? I mean, does it really like help them to be like, well, it was really hard and we didn't think it was possible, but we did figure it out later. So now we did it right. I'm like, that sounds like something a bunch of tech people online would think they would do, but not a company with shareholders and PR that, you wouldn't cancel something if you were just going to okay, this time, guys, we do have it ready. Everyone's like, you want to talk about
last
this again?
time when we said our engineers know how to do this? We really, really know how to do this again.
I think they're super embarrassed by that part of the keynote.
We
Why would
have
they want to come back
AirPods
and be
Lite.
like,
We have a compromised AirPower.
So we messed up, but not this time. We think it's working this time.
All these engineers,
so
guess
check
what?
back in a few
You're
months and we'll let you know if we got this working.
Wrong. You're wrong. Excuse me. You're wrong. Engineers, you're fired.
And imagine the risks. Like, imagine if AirPower came out and it's still overheated. Like, it would just be even worse. It would hurt them even further. Like, there's so much risk involved with launching that product. That
I mean this literally and metaphorically, but you're gonna need some ice for that burn.
Ooh.
Yeah, you would. Ice would be helpful. But no, like legit, you would. It would damage their reputation to even launch it, in my opinion. Even if it did work. The biggest problem with AirPower is not the AirPower itself, it's the Apple Watch. As soon as you bring Qi to the Apple Watch, you solve all the problems. So it's more of an Apple Watch problem than a charger problem, in my opinion.
So maybe that's what Series 6 will be.
That's what I thought the Series 5 would be.
One of the 3 features that Series 6 will have.
Is Qi charging. Wow.
That's great.
So there you go.
Any
now they have an
closing
incentive
thoughts?
for Series 6. That's the incentive for Series 6 is Qi charging. That's
well, we thought it was going to be that for the 5. I watched an old video and I was like, I really hope the Series 5 has Qi charging. So I'm like, we could do a compilation of each year. I really hope the Series 6 has Qi charging. I really hope the Series 7 has
I think it would suck to just not compromise, but to adjust Qi charging for Apple Watch just so you can have AirPower. I think is crap. I think it's a terrible idea.
No, it's for more universal charging standard.
That would be a good idea, but don't do it so you can finally put out AirPower and be like, oh, here you go. Just do it if you've. I think the intent needs to matter, and if they're doing it just so they can fix their PR and nurse their bruised egos, I think
that doesn't fix the PR to me.
You don't think
that puts more eyes on it, because then everyone's just anyone who talks about it will have to bring up that time on stage when Phil said no one else can do it but we know how to, and then the announcement of them canceling it and everything, like you have to bring that up every time you bring it up, so that would just bring more eyes to the failed promises, even if it did work. Then everyone can just say, well, they were late, or they didn't think they could do it at some point later after they thought they could do it. Now they think they could do it. It just messes it all up to me.
Yeah.
Any last words, gentlemen?
AirPower's dead. Elon, come on our next show. That means
so much more now. All right. We'll see you next week, guys. And we'll all have our keyboard cases next week.
Can't wait!
Hopefully. Expect some different angles.
Woo! I'm just going to play your outro,
everyone.
Andy. Bye.
Bye. Ba-ba.